Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Astral Tourist. This is another astral projection blast from the past, from back in November 2020. I'll be reading from my notes and inserting what I remember from the experience as I go here. This is called Weird Astral Encounter in a Liminal Zone, and this is a perfect example of astral projecting directly into a liminal mid-space area. So it says here, I felt a pulling sensation like I was gliding on a wave. And by now, that's my astral autopilot. So yeah, this was an autonomous astral projection. And it always seems to take me where I'm meant to go. Keep in mind, I make a lot of previous intentions throughout the day, during other nights and such. So when this is happening, I'm figuring it's taking me to one of those intentions. And it's really wild, some of the places I can end up. And I don't remember making an intention for a place like this specifically ever, but it was still really curious. So, and I figure if I don't like where I end up, I can always wake up or go somewhere else. So it says, this time it pulled me to a long, dimly lit corridor. So that's a liminal zone, all right. It's not even like a storage closet or something. It's a long, dimly lit corridor, and it felt creepy. I remember that. The creepy part's coming back to me now. I didn't even write that in yet. I think it comes later. So two ends stretched before me. I landed near the right side of this corridor. It wasn't super huge like some of my huge cities and things that I report, but it wasn't too small either. I mean, across it was probably, 4 to 5 feet maybe. And lengthwise, I can only guess. Maybe, this is harder lengthwise. Maybe 8 city blocks long, just a guess here. It was quite long. More than a building size long. But maybe not. Maybe it's more like 3 or 4 city blocks. It depends on the city. Like if it's small blocks, maybe 8. If it's long blocks, maybe 4 in the length. And there was a lot of gray. But what caught my attention, it says here, wasn't the light. It was the strange color of the gray. There was an almost transparent sheath running along one side of the corridor wall. And I thought to myself, maybe it's like another wall, like 2 walls in one or something like that. And now that I have, more astral projections, I'm thinking maybe it was a kind of security barrier, and you'll see why as we continue. Or it could have just been like a huge portal. Make of it what you will. It could have been something else entirely. I wrote here, perhaps a gateway to another dimension. And then I heard a voice coming through that, transparent flowing, I think like silk, but more like gauze. It was airy. So more like gauzy. And I heard this male voice. And again, it sounded creepy. There was this whole creepy vibe, but I was hanging in there with it because I was super curious. And I knew it was an autonomous projection. So the voice told me he had used the blue lotus powder I had given him in another astral projection and wanted to thank me with a present, a gift in the astral. I'm thinking this is a first. I wrote that down, but I'm not 100% sure it was the first present I ever got in the astral. I'm going to have to consult my journals to be sure. I tend to forget after, so long, a lot of these, but then they come back to me as I read back in my journals. So that's another reason to keep track and record everything somehow, because the mind, it'll forget after a while, and mine definitely does, because I keep having new experiences to record. And then, then my mind is focused on those. So I do a lot of trading in the astral, and I was back then too. And I know that, but I didn't remember him. Nothing about him was resonating at all yet. So I thought this is a whole different astral projection from whatever trade we did happened. So I was really perplexed by that and the corridor and the creepy feeling. And, back then I did make a note, and I saw some of my previous experience talking about this. There was a kind of a blue smoke powder that was becoming quite popular and quite the rage in a number of the astral shops. So sometimes in these mall worlds and things, there'll be something that's really popping and flowing and everybody wants it. And this was blue smoke or blue powder, and it would do things when you activated it. So think like firecrackers, but softer, and does some weird stuff. And so I figured I must have gotten a hold of some and traded him some. And for what we traded, I didn't remember, I didn't know, but that would be just like me. And so I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. That could have been me. And he explained how he wanted to hand me this present he had for me, like through that sheath in the corridor. Like he had brought me to the corridor. He had done this. He had made this place for this, I want to say exchange, but really this gifting. And he asked that I do not face him during this, as he wished to remain anonymous. Like, don't use your spidey senses on me, gal. And I agreed. I was like, okay. It's just a simple present, he assured me, because he could tell it was feeling like creeped out. And so what I did was I turned more towards the center of the corridor. I reached my hand back towards this gauzy sheath in that wall of the corridor, in this liminal space, like the sub area of the sheath. And I made sure to look away, and I blanked out my mind, like trying really hard not to be curious, but I was ever so curious. Who wouldn't be, right? But I was blanking my mind, making it go dark and all this. And he dropped the present in my hand. And when I brought it forward to take a look, it was a dark blue party horn decorated with stars. I thought, this looks really interesting. So think like a party favor, like those curled up paper things you blow at celebrations like New Year's. And I tried it out immediately. I tried blowing into it. It was obviously something I was supposed to blow into. And instead of a sound, blue smoke poured out of it, wisps that twisted and bent and curled. So I think he made something out of that substance that was going around the astral malls, and then gave me his creation, or one of them. And that was so cool. And the more I experimented with it, the more it would change. And I would like draw shapes in the air with it and stuff. And a short blow made a small spiral, a long blow. I got it all moving in circles, would create tunnels of smoke that stretched ahead. And I could shape them and play with them. And it felt alive, even though it wasn't really, but it was really cool. And as I was creating a pattern, trying not to pay attention to him because I had promised, I did notice, like, out my 360, which I was not actively using, but it was kind of like beamed on for a second there. I wasn't trying. I noticed two figures in the distance moving toward a white light that was now there at the corridor's far end. I could only make out their backs. The man wore a formal black suit and a top hat. His companion, a lady, wore a puffed Victorian dress and carried a lace umbrella. And, I tried not to observe any more than I already had. And I figured they're back ends. That's probably okay. I won't be able to get an ident from that. And they moved so gracefully. I remember seeing, completely absorbed in their journey toward that light at the end of the tunnel. And I made sure not to follow them. I was really good. And I couldn't help but wonder, were they really from a different time, and had been passed on for quite a long time? Or perhaps they were like going off and got dressed up to attend a Renaissance festival. because I get dressed up in the astral to do certain activities too. So I didn't know. I didn't try to telepath. I didn't follow. I had some fun with my surprise anonymous present. So I put the ghost figure as an emoji. I'm going to, because of how creepy it felt in the beginning, but then it turned out everything was okay. So, remember, in the astral, feelings can be enhanced. So it's not generally a good idea to react immediately. Like, yes, trust your instincts, trust your gut, but sometimes that initial vibe isn't the full vibe. That's all. So it says here that everything went dark as I slipped into a deep slumber. So I was heading into a deeper level of sleep. Probably, there's this one that's like a whole blackout period. And I think it's deeper than deep sleep that I go into sometimes. I call it hibernation sometimes. Anyway, I made sure to tell myself to remember it all. I made my mental book notes that I make that I've talked about before. And when I awoke, I wondered about the gift, the smoke, and the mysterious duo. It was just so cool that somebody gave me a present. And usually I'm trading in the astral, so there was probably already a trade. So this was like a little, like frosting on top. So here's a question for you. If you could receive an anonymous present in the astral, to be used in the astral, what would you want it to be? Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, I now have a music channel now. Also, I would like to do a question and answer episode. So if you have some questions, go ahead and line them up for me, and I'll do an episode with questions and answers. Until next time, happy astral travels. Lots of love, everybody, all around the world. Thanks so much for continuing to support me and hang in there with me.